Stop. Are you in the process of purchasing a new home or a vacant piece of property and you ran down that checklist of things that you need to look at or research before you sign on that dotted line and close on that piece of property or close on that vacant piece of property? Well, I'm here to tell you there's probably some other additional items that you didn't have on that checklist that you probably should have looked at before you signed on that dotted line. Well, I'm here to stop you before you do and give you a planner's perspective, and that is a city planner's perspective of some things that you need to look at before you close on that property. So stay tuned, and I have 5 things, and I may just have a bonus for you today. Okay, so before we jump right into this video to discuss the 5 different things from a planner's perspective that you need to look for and research before purchasing a new home or a vacant piece of property, let's thumbs up this video and let's subscribe, right? Okay, so before we jump right into the list of the 5 items that from a planner's perspective that you should look for, let's talk about the typical things that the typical homeowner or the typical investor looks at before signing on that dotted line and closing on that deal for a new home or closing on that deal for a new investment property, right? So what are some of the things that you think that you should be looking for? I'll give you a moment to think. Okay, so some of the things that I know to be typical is number 1 is price, right? Number 1, you always want to look for the price. Number 2, people typically look for is the equity. Is there equity built up in this house, on this property? And that's basically the difference between the existing value of the asset and the difference between that and the liabilities that are attached to that piece of property or home or vacant piece of property, right? The next thing that you're always going to be looking for is the location. Is it in close proximity to where you work? Is it in a downtown area? You're young and you want to live in a vibrant area. Or is it in close proximity to your children's school? Would you rather be in a suburban area? Things like that. Another thing that typical homeowners look for is the condition of the house. How's the roof condition? How's the electrical condition? How's the plumbing? Things like that can cost you tons of money in the long run. So people tend to look at that. Some of the other things are dear and personal things like the style of the home, right? Do you like Mission or Spanish style, or do you like Craftsman or Tuscan? Those are some of the things that people look at. And then one of the other big things that I notice is the age of the house, right? People tend to look at the age of the house. Do you want a new house that was just newly built, hasn't even been built yet? Or do you want something that is a little older, from the 70s or the 60s and things like that? So those are some of the things that I've noticed along the way that the typical homeowner or the typical investor looks at. But that's not what a planner is going to tell you to look for. I'm not telling you to look for those things, although I believe you should look for those things and those should be on your list, right? But there are some other subcategories from a planner's perspective that you should be looking at before you purchase a home or a vacant piece of property or whatever you're purchasing, okay? So stay tuned and we're going to jump right into that. So the number 1 thing that you need to look for, and from a planner's perspective, I'm always going to tell someone to look for and to research before they sign on that dotted line and close on a deal, whether it's for a home that you've been looking forward to getting forever, whether you're a new homeowner, whether you're a seasoned homeowner, whether you are an investor. I'm always, as a planner, going to tell you to look for and research this. Is the property's zoning district? You need to look up the zone that it is in. Is it a residential property? Is it a commercial property? Is it a property that is zoned industrial, right? You can be thinking that this property is zoned for residential, but it's actually zoned for commercial, but it has a house built on it and it was prior to the current city's zoning district, right? Now you ran into a problem because you may have some different development standards, and we're going to get into that later. But the number one thing from a planner's perspective that you always need to look for and research and look this up ASAP is the zoning district. The number two, right? The number two thing that you need to look up from a planning's perspective on when it comes to a new piece of property or home that the property is sitting on is the general plan land use designation, right? So you're like, okay, why? Who cares, right? Well, you want to make sure that the general plan land use designation and the zoning district are compatible, okay? Because you might run into issues when you try to build something, or you may try to tear down something to rebuild something. And if those two things aren't compatible, you will run into issues. So the number two thing is look up the general plan land use designation and make sure that it is compatible to the zoning district. So the number three item that you need to research from a planning's perspective before purchasing a new home or a vacant piece of property is the development standards per its zoning district, okay? So we're gonna jump right into that, and those are things such as like setbacks, height requirements, the maximum lot coverage, the maximum dwelling units per acre, right? The property dimensions, things like that. But we're gonna jump right into those right now, and I'm gonna explain to you what each of those are. So let's get into the setbacks. Setbacks basically means an unbuildable area, and that is from the property line until a wall or a post, right? So that is an unbuildable area. So for instance, your property line is 20 feet to the south, right? And then your house is 20 feet to the north. So your, let's say your setbacks are 10 feet. So from the property line going 10 feet north toward your house, that is an unbuildable zone. You cannot build anything in that area. That is what your setbacks are. And right up here somewhere, right in this area, right, I'm going to include a picture of a plot plan with typical setbacks, right? So you can get an idea of what I'm talking about, because sometimes some of us are visual, and I know I am. So seeing something visual will help. So hopefully something right in this area will help you out, okay, for setbacks. When it pertains to development standards, something else you need to look for is the maximum height allowed in this zoning district. Is it 30 feet? You're only allowed to build upwards from the ground level up 30 feet. Are you allowed to go to 50 feet? Are you only allowed to go to 20 feet? I don't know what type of zone district will that be in, because that is just, it makes no sense. But typically you'll see something around like 30 feet or something like that. So you need to look up the height. You also want to look up the property dimensions. And what I mean by that is look at the entirety of the parcel. And I'm going to post somewhere right in this area. A typical parcel, we're just going to do like a rectangular parcel. Nothing fancy, nothing too advanced. But you want to look at the parcel. And then you want to look at the dimensions. It is, for instance, maybe 60 feet wide by 120 feet deep. So those are your property dimensions. And the reason why you want to look at the property dimensions is because the development standard says per this zone district R16, your property must be at least 60 feet wide by 120 feet deep. And if it is not, then you're running into a problem, an issue, right? And I'm going to explain what that issue is a little bit down more into the video. But just remember, I said that is a problem if it is not complying with that requirement of that zoning district. Let's get into the minimum lot size. That is something you need to look up. That is so important. So let's keep rolling with R16 because I'm feeling that zone district. But let's say for R16, the minimum lot size, whether it is gross or net, the zone district will tell you, the development standards will tell you if it is net or gross size. But let's say that the gross size is 6,000 square feet. Let's say your property is 9,000 square feet in size. You're good. You're perfect. It is over the minimum lot size, so you're fine. But let's say your minimum lot size of your property that you're trying to purchase is only 4,000 square feet. Once again, you're running into an issue from a planning's perspective that you're not complying with that development standard in that zone district. So we're going to jump into why that is an issue a little bit further down in the video, right? But just remember, once again, you're running into an issue, but you want to look up the minimum net or the minimum gross size of a property. Okay, this last one is for my investors, right? Or typical homeowner who is down the future in the horizon. You are saying one day I'm going to be an investor and I'm going to do this. But this is for you guys, okay? So the last one is you want to check the density, right? What density is allowed in the zoning district. And what I mean by that is the dwelling units per acre. The amount of houses allowed on that property per its size, per its acreage size, right? So typically, let's keep rolling with R16. Let's say R16 says single family, and it only allows single family, but you're trying to develop multifamily, maybe like a triplex or a fourplex down the line, as an investment dream that you had. Well, sorry, the zone district does not allow for multifamily, which that is considered to be multifamily. So yeah, you're in the wrong zoning district. You need to look elsewhere. So, let's hope you didn't already sign that contract saying, yeah, I'm down with this and this is my piece of property and I want to build on this. And now you go down to the city and they're saying, you can only build one single family home on that on that piece of property because the zone district, which is a legislative piece of document that is signed in by the authority, makers of the city, they're not allowing for a multifamily. They're only allowing a single family home. So now you're stuck with a piece of property that you can't do anything with. You're now going to have to try to sell that. Sorry. So that is something that you need to look for. Okay, let's jump into the last development standard, which I feel is very important in its own right, that you need to research before purchasing or closing on a piece of property, whether it already has a home on it or it does not. You need to be looking up the property's maximum lot coverage per its zoning district, okay? Are you only allowed to build on 50% of the lot? Is it 40%? Is it 75%? You need to know how much you can build on your piece of property, right? Okay, so like I said, I'm not going to leave you guys hanging. You want to know, what did I keep referring to when I kept saying, okay, hold on. As soon as we get through the development standards, we will discuss what I keep saying as it may be a potential issue, right, for you. And what I kept referring to, but not telling you guys yet because I didn't want to confuse you, was let's say you have you bought a piece of property and it already has an existing house on it, right? That house has been there for 100 years. Let's say it's a historic house. It's been there for 100 years, right? And that is before the current zone ordinance was set into place. Let's say it was set into place in 2005, right? Now you have a property that is, when you looked up the setbacks, because you looked it up, and the side yard setbacks were 15 and 15 on both sides. But it looks like the house is encroaching into the setbacks 5 feet, right? Uh-oh, now we have an issue, right? What is that issue called? That per the zoning ordinance and per my jurisdiction and per a lot of city planners, we call that a legal non-conforming structure or a legal non-conforming lot. If the lot size, when I said like the dimensions, if the dimension says that it's supposed to be 60 by 120, but your lot size is only 40 by 100, that lot is not conforming to the zoning ordinance. That house's setbacks are encroaching into the setbacks, so it is considered a legal non-conforming structure because it is not complying with the zoning ordinance with regards to setbacks. So you have a legal non-conformity issue. Now, what that typically different jurisdictions have different ways of handling that. And for our jurisdiction, you can continue to do whatever you want on your lot as long as you're not further bringing that structure or that lot into more non-conformity, okay? So let's jump back into the list. We are at number 4. The number 4 item that you need to research per a planner's perspective with regards to purchasing a new home or a vacant piece of property is you need to, well, mainly this is going to be for a new house, a property that already has structures on it, okay? This is to check to see if any additions to the house or structure, or if there are any accessory structures in the rear yard that make sure that they have valid building permits, okay? We run into these issues so often, it's comical. And I'm sorry to laugh, but we get them all the time. And it's like, why haven't people learned yet? But I have to remember, not everyone knows this information. And I do want to tell you something. Do not always trust what your real estate agent is telling you. I am sorry. I love you. If I have any real estate agents watching this video, I'm sorry. I love y'all. Right? I love y'all, but y'all stay in y'all lane. I stay in my lane. I don't know how to sell a house, but I know how to tell you information that you need to know before purchasing a house, okay? And a lot of times we get real estate agents, they call and they don't even know what the zone district is. They didn't even take the time to look up the property. They just call us to look up the property, and it only takes 1, 2, 3 clicks and you'll know your zone district. So that's how I'm going to tell you guys, for your own sanity, homeowners, investors, look up the property yourself to find this information. So with regards to accessory structures, for instance, we always get we get calls like this all the time. A person is looking to purchase a piece of property, and kudos to you, homeowner, right? And I'm going to tell you why. Homeowner is calls me. Ring, ring, ring. Hi, Drew. Hi, Tomboy Drew. I'm looking at purchasing this piece of property. It's located at APN XYZ, or it's located at address XYZ. My real estate agent told me that the granny unit or a guest house in the backyard is allowed. I just want to double check. Kudos to you, homeowner, for doing your due diligence yourself and taking accountability for yourself, because you cannot always trust real estate agents. My real estate agent told me that it's allowed. It's a permitted use, and it's allowed to be in the backyard. Is that true? I go look up the property. The property is zone R16. And per the zoning ordinance, person who was calling me, the R16 zoning district does not allow for guest houses. Wait, excuse me? Huh? My real estate agent said it was allowed. I'm sorry, it is not. Now you run back into what? A legal nonconformity issue. So always check to make sure that your house additions to the house, or accessory units or structures or buildings on the property have valid permits, building permits, okay? Okay, this last one is going to sound so ridiculous, but as a planner, we get these calls all the time, and it's with regards to Fencing. People always want to know about their fences. How high can I build my fence in my front yard? Can I build a fort around my entire property? I want it to be 25 feet high around my entire property. CMU block wall fence, okay? Or we hear it all. Typically in the front yard, in my jurisdiction, you're only allowed to build up to 3.5 feet. Okay? We do not want you building forts, because if something happens to someone in the home, emergency wise, like fire needs to come in, do CPR on someone, and you have a 25-foot fort around your entire house, now we can't even get in. This person, something bad happens to them. Who's at fault here? It's going to be the city and you at the same time, because why did we allow such a ridiculous standard in our zoning ordinance? But also you, why would you want that? Okay. Another thing that we always get is fencing between the houses, right? You and a property owner share a fence, right? And the fence falls in some tremendous storm. Who's responsible for rebuilding that fence? Does the city get involved? Is it a private issue or is it a public issue? Will the city get involved? Those are the type of things that you need to be asking and looking at. And that is all found in the zoning ordinance, or by checking with the city planners, or even by checking with code compliance, right? Or code enforcement, right? You can get those answers. So that is the last one. That is number 5, which is fencing, right? I know that one seems so ridiculous, but we get those calls all the time. Oh, all right. So I promised you guys a bonus, right? So I'm going to make this quick because I'll be rambling on and on, but we're going to make this quick. So here's your bonus. So that is 6 items that I provided to you from a planning perspective that you as a homeowner, investor, developer need to look for or research prior to purchasing a home, purchasing a property that is vacant. These are items that you need to look at. So this bonus thing is you need to look up the permitted uses, the uses that require limited or minimal conditions, and the uses that require a conditional use permit in that zone district. So for instance, let's say you have an R16 property. It is zoned R16, right? You look in the zoning ordinance underneath R16, and it says underneath permitted, single family housing is permitted. Playgrounds are permitted. Schools are permitted. Those are things that are outright allowed. Then you look underneath uses that require some conditions. That may be such things as guest homes, or group homes, right? Group homes require a little bit of finessing and for the city to look at prior to you just going out and saying that your home that you're purchasing is going to be a group home. We have to give you some sort of administrative review before we allow it. Okay. And then the last one is a conditional use permit is allowed for this use. So that may be the guest home, right? In R16, the city may allow a guest home with a conditional use permit, which means you have to notify the surrounding public or the surrounding property owners within 300 feet of the site. You may have to go through a public hearing process with the planning commission, who makes the final determination of if that use will be allowed on that property. All right, so those are the 6 items that you need to research prior to purchasing a home or a piece of property, okay? All right, once again, I am glad that you guys came through. You hung out with me a little bit, learned a little bit today, and let's thumbs up this video and let's subscribe, because I'm putting a lot of effort into giving you guys this information. So let's subscribe, and I hopefully you guys have a great week. We are now into Monday, and today was Veterans Day, and I'm working on my holiday for y'all, okay? So let's give this video a thumbs up and let's subscribe. I will talk to you guys soon. And let's look back on my old videos, like what is planning? What is the general plan? What is the zoning ordinance? I gave you guys all this information. But anyways, have a great one, and I look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Peace.